Hi, good morning, everybody. Corrie here with Keeping It Real, More Than Existing. Today we have Chantelle, who is the owner of Savedbyaspell. She is a practicing Wiccan. Would that be the name?
Yeah. I would just classify myself as a witch now. I practiced exclusively Wicca for quite a few years, so it's my base. That's my base structure of my practice. But I don't practice just strictly Wicca anymore. I've kind of expanded into a few different avenues, and there's different types of witchcraft that I've kind of incorporated into my practice. So just labeling it just Wicca is not the most accurate anymore. But that's where like my big base of my knowledge base is, because I did practice exclusively Wicca for so long. But I kind of label myself mostly as just like an eclectic witch now, because I do a little bit of everything. And that would be the best description.
Okay. I met Chantelle years ago, so I know a whole lot about Chantelle and the multi-talented woman that she is and the healer she is. And, you know, a witch is truly a woman. She's a goddess. She's a woman who can do it all. She has conquered it all. She has more wisdom, education, and knowledge than most people that I even know. She's a woman who's always after knowledge, and she is a woman who truly has stepped into her light. When I met Chantelle, she was kind of on that fence of where she was going in the big public eye, but there was no way of hiding her in the little town that we were in. She always pretty much stood out no matter where she is. She is a presenter at the upcoming event that we have in the Corrie School of Magic. So she's going to be one of our presenters. She's going to be doing some talking on being a witch and on, you know, the work that we do in being who we are as women and who we are in this industry. And I hate to even call it industry. I don't think it's an industry. I think it's a lifestyle. I hate the word industry. I'm like, I got out of that world for a reason, so that we could be us and be allowed to be all of us. So I'm actually going to give a little bit of space to Chantelle to tell you a little bit more about what she is actually doing at the moment with her work, with truly stepping into being a witch and encompassing all that is to be of who Chantelle is. So it's yours.
All right. So currently I have my online store, and I sell locally as well, but most of my sales are online. That's where my space is right now. My biggest things right now that I sell is witchcraft kits and supplies. My mystery boxes are the biggest hit, because you kind of get a little bit of everything. And that's a great starting point for people who don't really know what they're doing in their practice, or they're just kind of starting out. It's nothing too specific. I also do beginner witch booklets and information and things like that do very well as well online. Currently, just started in October, I started a subscription box. The nice thing about my witchcraft subscription boxes versus some other ones is mine are very curated for not just beginners, but also seasoned witches, because it comes with all of the instructions and the raw materials. And like, you can just open up the box and it tells you exactly what you need to do with it and what the purpose of it is, and the theme that is around that, like when the box is released. But if for seasoned witches, it's all raw material. So you don't necessarily have to use it for what I tell you to. You can use it for whatever you feel in tune to, but it's all based off of that time of the year. So it's not like just random stuff put in together, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I like those, but my box specific is it's very curated for the time of the year. Keeping that, you know, seasoned people in mind as well as beginners. So that just came out in October. The December box is shipping right now. That the first kind of shipping round is already done, and that box comes out bi-monthly, so every 2 months, which cuts down the price a little bit, as far as, you know, you're not paying that big price every month. It's every 2 months, but there's enough raw material and supplies in it that it'll last you the 2 months. Like, there's spells and rituals laid out for those 2 months until your next box kind of comes in. So that's what I'm doing currently. I also have an office here locally in Slave Lake, where I do my tarot readings, and I was gonna start my Reiki the day that the lockdown restarted. I recorded my video of like, look at my new office doing Reiki, and then it was like, no, lockdown, like the day it was like announced, and I'm like, never mind.
Forget that.
Yeah, never mind. Yeah, so when we are able to obviously do one-on-one appointments and stuff like that again, I do have an office locally, but I do offer, just recently that due to, lockdown, things have to change. So I am offering my tarot readings and distance Reiki through online video as well. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing currently. I have a few projects in the works. So I'm obviously doing the event in January with Corrie School of Magic. And I have my videos and stuff that I release, now and again when I have time. And yeah, a few projects that are like in the works is just kind of expanding my products and stuff that I sell online, looking at more of just like doing more supply type of products and things like that. There's a book in the works coming down the line, and yeah, I can go on and on all day about all the ideas and all that kind of stuff.
I'm like, don't put us together. You need more than an hour to put us together.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah, I'll go on all day about all the projects that I want to do. Yeah.
So can you just tell us a little bit about what's in those boxes? I have to admit, I'm one of those who have yet to get one of the boxes, which I know I really want and need. And I just finished saying, I need some candles and I need some oils and I'm like, well, I know right where to get this. Can you just tell them a little bit about what the I know every box will be different, but what exactly would be in a box, like for a springtime or for a fall time, or well, we have winter coming up. So what would be?
Absolutely. So there's certain things that like all the boxes will have, and then it kind of expands depending on the theme, right, or of that specific box. So I'll just talk about my December box, just an example. That one just came out.
Yes.
So all of the boxes have herbs that are going to be associated with the theme. There's going to be candles, so there's always going to be chime candles, or most people know them as the spell candles. Yeah. So there's always going to be herb spell candles. There's always going to be some type of oil, whether that's going to be an essential oil or like a warming oil or something like that. So those are always going to be in there. And related to that, there's always going to be listed out spells and rituals related to those items. And then on top of that, it's whatever is specific to the theme. So in the December box, for example, there was a Yule log that me and Tristan went out and actually made all of these nice birch Yule logs.
So cool.
Because December is Yule time. So like the December box had a Yule log. We also had like a big, nice oil warmer that came with like oils. Like I think, well, there was 2 essential oils and then one like an actual just scented oil for the warmer. There's kind of like trinket stuff like pins. There's little spell bottles and fabric and things like that to make like sachets and whatever is associated with the spells of that time. So those are the main things in that my December box. There's also like a little keepsake box to like keep all your junk in. Like, there's always like those kind of like little extra things. But all of the boxes, like that's the kind of like when I'm building my box. So like now I'm getting ready to build my February box, for example. I always start off with, okay, like what herbs are associated with springtime? Like pick my theme. Okay, like these are the herbs. Am I going to do an essential oil? Go like move what essential oil I'm going to do. And then I start thinking about the rituals and the spells around that time. And then as I kind of like curate those, then it all kind of comes into place and it's like, oh, okay, well, they'll need this or they'll need that. And I just kind of build from there. And then there's always the like, okay, those are like the, that's the work stuff. And then it's like, okay, well, let's pick a few fun stuff, right? Like the oil warmer, for example, or, it's not necessarily witchcraft specific, but it's a tool that most witches or people who like do pagan or spiritual work would enjoy. Like, I don't know anyone that would not want an oil warmer. Like,
I just think
or like a nice incense holder or something like that. So, I mean, there's always the extra kind of things on top as well.
Okay. Yay. And I'm like when you think of that box and you think of how much stuff she puts into it, I just instantly she went out and got those logs and actually made those Yuletime logs. Like actually did that herself. Like this is the thing about Chantelle that I love as a person, as a human being, is she always goes the extra freaking mile. She never does anything like just to get it done or just for money or she puts her love, her everything into everything that she does. I have never yet seen her not do that. I remember the first time she set up at the other event I used to host, and it was the Women's Winter Wellness. And you literally, we walked in, all you could do was smell this space that she was creating. And then we looked over and it was like we just walked into, I mean, it already looked like winter wonderland, because I mean, I'm kind of that way. I'm that way myself, but there was just like, so you could see, feel, sense the magic. And I don't think people always understand that magic is based around that loving feeling, that sense of, it rises our vibration into something so fantastic that makes us feel. And it's, you know, and it's being able to feel the presence of love, being able to feel the presence of somebody who is empowered and caring enough about the people who are coming to see her to actually put her all into it. And it was like, it was all so beautiful and so well put out, because I can tell you, if you're getting anything from Chantelle, you are getting the best of the best, and it is created with love. I have never seen her do anything other than that. Just, I just want to put that out there, because it's, you know, and it's why she's one of my favorite humans. And there's the people who are speaking at this, some I don't know, some I have not met, but it all aligns to be perfectly the way it's meant to be. And then the ones who I do know are all very special people in my life. They're all people who have impacted my life or influenced or left an imprint up on me. Chantelle trained with me in her Reiki back a few years ago when we started. And instantly we went into goddess energy. Like, it was just like, it was total goddess energy. We stepped into being able to see, feel, sense our goddess. And I don't think always that people associate, oh, you're a witch. Well, you know, well, what's, you know, you're this, you're that, it's all this dark magic, it's blah, blah, blah. We're goddesses, and owning and being empowered in that strong strength of who we are as women, and the ability to be able to operate from a place as a strong, empowered woman who can truly stand in her own light is incredible. And so would you even, you know, not would you even, would you mind telling everybody a little bit about, you know, what a witch is for you, where a witch truly sits within your heart now that you've, you know, expanded yourself to this place, ascended to this place?
Yeah, so I mean, yes, absolutely. People sometimes hear witch and they think of, yeah, absolutely dark magic and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, that can be a part of it for some people. That I'm not going to be, you know, it's a real thing. But when I think of witch and like how I practice and things like that, it's just the way that I connect with universal energy. So I mean, some people, you know, there are witches who, they're Christian witches. So I mean, they still believe in the Christian faith, but they still, you know, tap into those earthly energies by doing, you know, candle spells and stuff like that. It's just a way that I tap in and make a connection with my guides, deities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just the way that I do it. And so the easiest label is just to say witch, because that's what people associate it with, right? So I mean, it has nothing to do, like, as far as the witch label, it has nothing to do with anything actually specific. It's a very open practice. Everybody does it a little bit differently. It's just that the base belief of the earth cycles, universal cycles and stuff like that, that's the base belief. On top of that, it's very specific to each person. But yeah, exactly. The very bottom line is, it's just, this is the way that I practice, and this is the way that helps me connect with those kind of divine energies. That's really all it is. Everybody does it a little bit different. You do it differently than I do. At the end of the day, we're connecting and receiving that love and light and that divine energy, and from our guides and all that kind of stuff. It's just my starting point is just a little bit different than somebody else's, but in the end we're all kind of getting to the same kind of level of energy.
Right. And I don't think people always get that. You know, we're healers. We work in spiritual healing. We work in being connected to Mother Earth and being connected to that earthly energy, but also being connected to the ether. And, you know, I said, I speak to Mother Mary and Jesus, but I also speak to the Palladians. I speak to the goddesses. I work with Lilith. You know, there's a constant flow of energy. And like, the world is so big and we're expanding so much with outside of our humanness, right? And we're moving beyond that. And to be able to open our minds and to see the world is starting to finally open up more and more and more to the weirdness of us to the fact that us unique people, us kind of, that we never had that place, or we had to felt like we had to be in hiding. And do I travel into some darkness? Well, of course, I created more than existing. I had to travel to the depth of my darkness, of my darkest places, to my shadow self, to beyond the shadows, to the depth of my wounds, in order to do the healing that I needed to do to awaken to my light. And that's a truth, that life has our whole world, and life has light and dark. And where we operate from, where we heal from, is moving towards the light. And so what I find for me in practicing all of who I am now, and we're sitting here right now, and I have four corners and four candles in the four corners. And there's just something that I just walk into my space, my room, and I never know what I'm doing. I just do things and it just happens, and and that's the thing about being open and open-minded, is that you just trust, and you trust that who we are and how we're awakening, or how we're showing up, is unfolding in the most beautiful way. So I didn't know when I started this journey into such a deep level that I was going to create more than existing, that I would have to go to such a dark place within myself to see, to actually, I always said I traveled to the depth of my depression, to go to the darkness of my depression, to do my healing. And so for me, that darkness was to really see the places of having to take ownership and responsibility for my own life, for my own shit, for the things that I've done. And that we all have the ability to probably be in that place at some point, but recognizing and knowing that there's something still that keeps me towards the light, that keeps me in that place of faith. And so for you, when you think of that depth of the darkness that we have to go, what comes to light for you?
So yeah, I'm like deep in this process right now. It's part of the book that I'm writing, so I mean, I've already gone through a lot of it, but I have to kind of revisit it just to kind of like, oh yeah, I remember that. The easiest way that I can describe it to someone is, it's almost like a dark tunnel. You can see the light on the very end, and it's like they know it's there and they want it, but it's like, but that tunnel though. And it's like, you have to, so you can stay where you are and just see it and like know it's there, but you just have to go in the tunnel and keep your goal in mind, and obviously and just get through it. Like, it's, there's no easy way, that unfortunately, because shadow work's actually a big part of witchcraft. So I get questions about it pretty often, actually. I get questions about it. And it's, there's no easy trick to it. There's no trick. There's no,
I wish the hell there was. I would have got it a lot sooner.
Well, yeah, trust me, if I found it, I will tell you. But yeah, you just kind of get through it. The things that we can help you with is just a way to get through that tunnel a little bit easier, right? And it's like, I've been through this tunnel a million times. Let me help you. Like, I'll let you know the steps and just kind of like help to ease the process of getting through that dark tunnel. But at the end of the day, you got to get yourself through that tunnel. Nobody can put an arm out on the other side and drag you through. You have to get yourself through it. So that's probably the easiest way I can describe that process. I mean, that's obviously a lot easier than actually doing it, but to kind of give a bit of a visual example of what it can feel like in that, when you're going through that process. But there is, as with everything else, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of it is just focus on your goal and what you want to achieve on that other end, to keep you motivated to keep going through that dark tunnel and just working your process through it. But yeah, it's easy for us on the other side to go like, come on over, it's amazing. Like, yeah, right, come on over, it's amazing, whatever. And I mean, it's easy for us on the other side, but yeah, there's years and days of me not being able to get out of bed, depression that was part of that process. And we're not, at least I don't know if I can speak for you, Corrie, but like, I'm not ignorant in that fact that you will have to go through that. Like, I had to, there's stuff like, it happens, right? You have to get through that process. But I'm still on the other side going, you can do it. Like, I know it sucks, but it's so worth it on the other side. It's, and that's like any process of you know, when I was going through school or anything like that, like it sucks at the time, but when you get to the other end, you're like, oh man, that was so worth it. It's worth the work. It's just, it's when you're at that starting point or at the beginning of the tunnel, it can be quite daunting and overwhelming, but we're here to help.
Well, we're here, right? That's what we do.
If that's any consolation.
And you don't get to do it alone. And I always say, it's not just, you know, I always get people saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I spoke to somebody else, or I read somebody else's book. And I'm like, what are you sorry for? We are all here working together to help you all. And so it's a collective energy. Like, we're working all from that same place, and no one can do the work for you. And it's not freaking easy. And I created like this 360 view charts that I use in my training. And it was like, I said, you know, we all get to this. We all want to get on. We all want to wear the spiritual t-shirt. We all want to put the shirt on, and we all want to go to the meditation. We want to go to yoga. We want to cross our legs and say, oh, I'm Zen. And then we get to the point where we just like, yes, look at me. Let me tell you, you need to do this. You need to do this for you, da, da, da. And I'm like, and then you get that 180. So it's like losing 25 pounds and you got 50 to lose. You get there, you get to that 180, and then you lose that weight, and you're feeling good. You're doing much better because you're not where you were. You hit that halfway point. And then it's like you start to lose that drive, because it's hard to squeeze yourself in that tunnel because it gets tighter, right? It gets tighter and it gets harder, because then you got to put the extra mile in. You got to put more action steps in. You have to face more of yourself. You have to look at yourself even deeper again. So then it's like by the time you get to the 180, it's like, or by the time you get up between the 180 and the 360, you're 3/4 the way there, and you notice you're losing people are falling away, things are falling away, your life is changing, and you're not feeling so good about yourself, because life you feel more confined. It feels like this is hard work. And that's where people quit, that 180 to the 3/4 the way. And then they give up on themselves, because it's like, this is too much work. But you're not thinking of that light, because you're already looking back. You're already looking back instead of keep looking forward, right? It's like, if you go this way, you're going to have to keep redoing this and that karmatic debt over and over. And you're going to have to keep reliving this. Imagine being able to move beyond that, being able to have faith enough. And I said, this is where it takes having faith in you. Don't matter what anyone else thinks. You find your own way. And you just take all that guidance, and you're able to get yourself from this point to this point. So it's like point C to back to that 0, to wholeness is truly. And I always say, people use the terms like, just create healthy habits, just do this, just do that. And I'm like, no, it is called love. It's the action of love, which is the action steps towards self-love, which is also ultimately the way to living within the virtues. You have to find your way home to you. And if you can't find your way home to you, nobody can do it for you. It is not easy, but it's worth it. And this is how, you know, I know where Chantelle has been to, you know, from the time I know in her, and I know the hard work that she had to put in, and the time she spent in school, and she worked. And she became a new mom again. It's like, she got married, she became a new mom. Like, she threw a lot of extra things in there along the way, plus kept going, plus kept creating, plus allowed herself to evolve. Because that's the big thing. We can't stay who we used to be and become who we need to be. Mm-hmm. And that's huge. And a lot of things fall away in that process.
Yeah, it comes down to it gets harder before it gets better. And the price of the new you is the cost of your old self, which that's a cost that a lot of people struggle with. And like, don't get me wrong, I struggle with that too for, you know, a few stages of like, yeah, but this is easy. I know this self, you know, it's, you know, I've lived this self for however many years. I know what it's like to live as this person, etc. And it can be easy to fall back in that, and you do, like, that's fine. It's part of that, you know, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's just part of the process. But yeah, it can feel like a big cost at the time, but it's the only way I can describe it is like, once you kind of commit and you're like, screw it, I'm doing it, right? Yeah. Like, screw it, this is it, it's happening, I'm moving past this. And then after, it's like, oh my God, like, why was I hanging on to that? Like, it's, you know, but you don't realize it until you get past it. But yeah, it can feel sometimes that like it gets hard, it gets worse before it gets better. But when you hit that better, it's like, you're just like, oh man, like, I don't even know why I was taking on to that, and stuff like that. And I find in the process now, where I've kind of passed that shitty level, it's when new stuff comes up, or I have old stuff kind of creeping in again, you can deal with it almost instantaneously. It makes it, you get to a stage where it doesn't even, you don't even give it space enough to like hang on or actually affect you. And so, I mean, once you kind of get past that, the process that you still have to continue, you always have to do it, it just comes so much faster and so much easier. On the other side.
on the other side, back
on
into
the other
the light.
side.
Yeah. I always say, and there was none of this. I always say, people are always waiting for that big aha moment, or waiting for your life to be defined by finding this big purpose. And I'm like, no, you're here to live on purpose, and you fucking skid in ugly, and it's not pretty, and we slide into base, and you're dirty, and you get up and you wipe yourself off and say, holy fuck, and you're full of bruises, and I'm like, it's not a no big beautiful aha moment.
It's not, yeah,
it's
no.
not, there's not, and
no.
It's the cost. Now we say at the beginning of the book, I say, I'm done. I'm finding joy and happiness no matter the cost. And I say, then I discovered dictionary lies, because what joy and happiness was nothing of what I thought joy and happiness was going to look like. And first I didn't realize, I'm like, I don't know what love is. I don't know what joy is. I've been sad my whole life, and then but I pretended to be happy, or I pretended that I knew joy. So I was faking it until you make it, but that's bullshit. You can't do that. You actually have to make it happen. Yeah. And it's finding the terminology, or looking beyond the terminology, and knowing that it's all in a feeling. And I work in NLP, and I always say, it's not reliving, or now work as a past life healer. It's not about reliving your issues, because you're reliving that every time you are triggered by society back into a thought or a feeling based on a past experience that's coming to life in the experience you're having right now. And it's about moving beyond that. Go to the end and look at that. Look at the end of every one of the experiences you had in your life. Guess what? You're still here. Mm-hmm. That was that's the common thread, is at the end of every one of those experiences, you were still standing. So what does that say about you? What does it say about how much strength and courage and, faith and trust you actually must have in yourself, that you're not believing you have based on old conditioning, that you actually still have, that you're there, right? And so if you're already there, you're already halfway there, mm-hmm. Right? You're already halfway there. If you're already there, if you look at the end of every experience instead of looking through or looking back type of thing, you're right there. So what's possible if you're already right there?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just to touch on the aha moment, because yeah, everyone's waiting for that, like, and they'll spend all their resources and time doing XYZ, waiting for that aha moment to happen. And I guess you could call it an aha moment, but my realization of that, like, I've kind of passed that, is when you recognize that you don't do old habits anymore. Yes. And that's when you're like, holy shit, I made it. And it's, speaking of me becoming a new mother, a lot of that was through that process of, not only motherhood stuff, but interacting with my husband as two parents and things like that. There'd be situations, and I would think back of like, oh, like last time, like I would have done this, or I would have thought this, or I would have whatever. And I didn't even think of those old habits. I just more caught myself of, you know what, like I've completely changed my mindset of what like my role is, or how I would interact in this certain situation, or how I would behave in this certain situation. And then it's kind of like, yeah, like I've totally moved past that, to the point that I don't even have to think about it anymore. I'm not consciously making the decision to do it differently. I've changed my mindset of my priorities and how I perceive our hierarchy of, my importance in our relationship and things like that, where you just do it automatically. And so I was having this conversation with somebody recently of like, it's not this big aha moment, or, this big awakening. you realize you go through the process, and you kind of catch yourself one day and going like, huh, like I grew past that. I didn't even realize it. I wish there was a big aha moment, and then, you know, you're like, it's working, but unfortunately it's not. But yeah, it's one of those processes that there's no, like with comparing it to schooling, for example, there's no big certificate at the end that, you know, you're done, right? It's an ongoing process, and you'll just self-realize along the way of how much you actually have grown without even really noticing it.
I would say one thing you start to notice is you notice in your glow, you notice in your skin, you notice in how you walk, you notice in how you stand. But when you're not aware of self, and you're not paying attention to you at all, you don't notice those things about yourself that you start to slump over, that you start to fall over, that you're leaning to one side. You're wondering why your back is bad. You're wondering why your hips are bad. You're wondering why you can't stand up. You're wondering why you're tired. You're wondering why you're ill. You're wondering why. It's like, I wonder why all this is happening to me. Well, you know, you've become a emotional dumping ground, and you're the one that's dumping the most in there at this point, right? And so it's like, and when we get stuck there, and when you start to see and feel different, you know you're doing something that's right. So imagine if you expand on that again, right? Imagine if you take that and you excel on that again, and you grow on that again, and you just keep going from there. And I would say, you know, some of the greatest teachers are our children, and some of the greatest ones that have conditioned us are our mothers. But some of the great thing about our mothers is they also taught us a lot about resilience. And a lot of what we do now is beyond, you know, in us healing, we're also going beyond even what they were capable of doing, because they didn't know. And the wisdom and knowledge that we are gaining now is making a difference. Like, I have my mother in my program. She's, you know, turning 70 in March. And I know for Chantelle, her mom passed away a few years ago into spirit world, and she's very alive. She don't have a human body, but I know how alive she is because I've spoken to her lots. And I'm like, but that wisdom and knowledge that they gave us, they might be, you know, they may have to be learning from us as well, because we're, you know, you're always learning from your children. But what they gave us as women, and how they have inspired, and it's when we start to come back into the light of ourselves, is when we recognize how much they actually inspired us. And whether some people say, well, my mother wasn't there, or my mother didn't do this, or no, but look what she did do for you. Sometimes by making a choice to do certain things, they were doing the best thing. Like, you learn from the strength and courage they have to be strong in their weaknesses, or to be strong where they are. So when I look at your mom and what she was doing in her volunteering, and how much she was giving, and what she taught you about compassion for human, you know, it's like, it's so amazing, right? And when you look at that umbilical cord connection, that link, it's so important to recognize that when we're doing any shadow work. Do you find that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you learn from both sides. So I mean, yeah, there's lots of positives that I got from my mother, exactly, caring for other people, and just her strength of, like, she had a rough marriage, and I have permission from my dad, because I'm writing this book, to talk about it. Like, you know, she was married to a severe alcoholic for many, many years. And I mean, there's obviously a lot of hardships attached to that, and just her strength and resilience of raising her children through that. And, like, you know, we never went hungry. We always had somewhere, you know, we always had a roof over our heads, blah, blah, blah. And I know a lot of that was due to my mother. So, I mean, there's a lot of strength and resilience and compassion for others and all that kind of stuff that I learned in, you know, from following that. But I also learned a lot going through my shadow work of the negatives that I learned from her, negative attitudes, habits, all of that kind of stuff. And my mother is passed, so it's actually a little bit easier for me to process those things, because I can just go, hey mom, let's talk about this. And I mean, she's on the spirit side, so I mean, there's no ego anymore, right? So she'll spill it all out for me pretty easily. But yeah, so different attitudes as far as her body. She hated her body her entire life. As far as I can remember, she was doing some kind of workout video, you know, something or other, some kind of diet. What is it? Richard Simmons? Is that the guy's name? Oh man. Oh yeah. There'd be the three of us in the living room with our friggin' socks pulled up, pretending that we have leg warmers, me and my sister, while we're doing the Richard Simmons videos. So, I mean, that's a fun memory, but there's a lot of shame attached to that memory.
There's a lot of shame to that.
There's a lot of shame. So, I mean, it's a fun memory as a kid, but there's a lot of shame attached to that memory as well. And so you're kind of dissecting, or, you know, I was dissecting on where my body shame comes from, because it's funny because I have shame when I'm as a fat person, and I have shame as a skinny person, and they both stem from my mother. And so, I mean, she'd never really directly, you know, said like, you can't be fat, or it's bad to be fat, or you can't be skinny, it's bad to be skinny. But the little, you know, the little comments and the little things like that, right? And when you really dissect them down into why, and it not only where I got that from, but it's like, where did it stem for her? You know what I mean?
Back to the original sin, back to the original source.
Absolutely. And so it wasn't, the healing didn't come from me going like, well, I got it from my mom and I'm going to release it. It's like, no, I'm dissecting where it actually originated from. And so when I worked it through with her, and I mean, again, it's a little easier for me because she is on the spirit side, but when I really dissected it of where that stemmed from, then the true healing could happen, because it wasn't just, you know, it's, well, because my mom said this when I was 5 or like whatever, that's why. It's like, no, like where does it really come, like where's the root, right? And sometimes some things can be handed off of, you know, this is just the way this person treated me, and that's as far as we can go. We can't dissect into everyone that we've interacted with in our lives, but some of those root ones, especially with our moms or like our, you know, direct caregivers, sometimes you need to really go down into those roots as much as you can, and that's where the true healing can happen in some of those situations.
That's the depth of our darkness, right? And so,
absolutely.
So like in this book, like when I wrote this book, same thing. I had to first, I said I wrote it the first time with the angry me, that fucking pissed off me, and then I rewrote it again, and it's like, and then you wrote it from a place of when I could transmute all of my anger to love, and I could take ownership and responsibility that I needed to get to the root of where this came from. And so I tell the story of my mother putting me in Slim Down at 10 years old, and I lived with that story for years. And it's the same thing. It's like, you're either too fat or you're too skinny. When I had my surgery and then I got too skinny, then everybody was all concerned, and you're too fat, like all these things, like there's never that happy medium, but it's what you do to yourself. It's those chatter in your head. And so I had to fall in love with me with all the weight on. And really, that's where I started this work at my biggest, at like 285 pounds. And I fell in love with her, and I dressed her beautiful, and I honored her. And I started this work during that time. Mm-hmm. And it was in writing this that I wrote all about being put in Slim Down. And here I was sitting around in this circle, 10 years old, being told, you lose 10 pounds, we get a new pair of jeans, a reward, right? And so I wrote all about it, and then I wrote about my Miss Piggy story, what I realized when I told Mom about the story, and we start speaking about, because my mother's still here, and I do the same thing. I had to get permission to be able to share most of the stories and write about this. And so she said, she's sitting down, we're going out for dinner, and she starts to laugh across the table at me. And she said, I never took you to Slim Down for you. I took you for me. And I said, but you were skinny and beautiful. I mean, my mother's only 20 years older than me, right? And I'm like, you were skinny and beautiful. And everybody used to always say, how come you can't look like why can't you look like your mom? And she said, but to her, she was fat, because the original source of the pain, the root of the issue went way deeper for both in our own story. So you had to get to the root of your own story. And she started, and because we use humor to kind of laugh, but it was a very big release, aha, healing moment of when she started to realize the realities and the illusions and the realities that we create and the illusions that we live in. And we live in our own realities that we create based on the stories we tell ourselves. And so she's like, oh my God, I just couldn't understand why you thought I was always picking on you. Now I can see how I really kind of was I was using, you were the reflection of my pain story, and I was going to make your life easier for you by, I'm going to help you with these things now. I'm going to take you to slim down. But she says, but the reason why I took you was I didn't want to go alone, because I was always so insecure of myself. I never wanted to show up alone. So I would take you.
Yeah.
You were my buddy. You were my friend. And in the book, we come to an understanding, a realization. She said, I never built a relationship with you as my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I built a relationship with you as my friend, as my sister. I've always treated you more like you were my sister. I told you knew too much. You knew everything was happening. I told you everything. Like, you were always in my pain stories. You were always present and aware. Whereas, you know, your sibling didn't get the same, you know, that was a different relationship. And it was never, she didn't love me. She didn't know how to love me the way that she needed to love a daughter, because she was so afraid that all the things that happened to her, she didn't want to be repeated, but it was being amplified because I was a product of her conditioned upbringing. Mm-hmm. Right. And so up of her life and her pain stories, in her wanting to protect me, more pain was caused. And then me wanting her to be a different person, I was lashing out more at her because I was having the inner child moments, lashing more out at her based on me wanting her to just treat me as if I'm a daughter or a number one or a priority somewhere. And I wanted her to change because I wanted her to stop hurting herself. Stop, stop it. And in the meantime, I was hurting her more. And I'm like, that circle, that cycle that we continue is such a repeat until someone decides to break it. And it was me that made that choice to choose to do something different. I'm going to travel this. I'm tired of being, so we all have depression, so we're all going to be that. That's just the way life is. Or no, it's not just the way things are. You have an opportunity to change this and to see things differently and to be different in relationships, or to be, so I say in the relationship I'm in, I first had to learn how to be a person in a relationship. I first had to learn about love. Not that I hadn't had relationships before, but I was never able to even let myself be open to even accepting, receiving, or to, it's like you were so closed down based on those stories. Mm-hmm. To be able to be different than that, wasn't that it was about being a different person. It was about being all of who I really truly was. Right. And so now I'm watching my mom at 70 years old, finally being herself and accepting the parts of her that she's been trying so hard to not to be because they're a problem for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. And also catching herself in her words and in those moments, and then calling and with her aha moments. It's actually, so it becomes a journey, a process where you see the change everywhere, because now you see it through, you see it through your children. You see it through the fact that even the relationship you've built with your mom as spirit, because she has no ego, but because you're now this woman that, you're fully in your light, everything changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's been pretty interesting, the relationship afterwards, because she liked the idea of like being a spiritual person and stuff like that, and oh man, it used to bug me all the time because she said, oh I can't do it, right here read me, or let's talk about this person on the spirit world, let's talk to your grandma, but I can't do it. And whatever, and so she kind of was right on that edge for so long, and unfortunately she never really like fully embraced it when she was still here, but as soon as she kind of got to that spirit world, and again ego kind of falls away, she's just like, oh, like it's unfortunate on some aspect that the way she got into her full power was by crossing over to that side. But when I think back to it, and when I like through conversation with her and stuff like that, she never really was supposed to be fully on this side, right? She always was supposed to be fully on that side. And the way she supports not only me, but like our other family members and stuff now that she is on that side is unmeasurable. Because I mean, a lot of excuse me, a lot of my coming into my power and all of that kind of stuff the last year, 2 years, is because she's on that side, you know, with no ego, telling me like, no, go for it, you know, blah, 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 which if she was still, well, I can't say for sure, but, you know, looking at who she was before she passed, if she was still here, a lot of it would be like, well, you know, yeah, that's all good, but like, you know, what about this? What if this happens? And, you know, you kind of get into those old cycle stuff, right? But where she's into her full power on that other side, it's the support and what I can use her for is way different. So, I mean, our cycle broke, unfortunately, due to death, but the change that's happened with her being on that side has just been crazy, crazy good. And yeah, a lot of my personal shadow work has been almost like put into overdrive because of that. Because again, it's a lot of it has to do with conversations that needed to happen for 30 years finally are happening. Well, I'm having all of them like instantly, you know what I mean?
All
It's
now.
like, yeah, it's all at once. So because like something will pop into my head and go like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. Then I go boom. It's like, yeah, it's like, this is all of the, it's like, yeah, this is what I was thinking. And this is what was going on around that time, whatever. It's like, okay. So I'm like, so I mean, that sounds good, but it can be overwhelming sometimes, obviously.
Oh, it's a crazy journey.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
It's
And I mean, and nobody's journey is the same. Like, I mean, there's obviously a lot of themes like the body, body image and stuff like that. That's obviously a very recurring theme for a lot of women, right? So, I mean, there's overlapping themes, but your story related to that and my story related to that and everybody else's story is completely different. In the end, we all ended up hating our bodies, but I mean, the process of what we went through and the process for us to get over that is completely different. It's very specific to each person,
right.
Which kind of circles back to I can't tell you how to do it because you gotta work it out.
Right. And we're all different and we're made up different. Like, I mean, my mother always said, and she said this from the time I was little, you were born confident. You just walk this earth like you're just confident. And it was when I found myself losing that natural confidence, I knew I had to do something different. I'm like, I'm losing something of me here and I couldn't lose it anymore. And I would say like tarot, those things people don't realize, it's the hero's journey. It's that. And I realized when I started creating, I was channeling through some of the greatest philosophers and psychologists and psychiatrists of the years that lived in like the early 1900s that were already writing these books. This is not new work. It's when you awaken to it, when you recognize it. And then I start finding these people. I'm like, what the hell? Where'd this person, like they were channeling through me this information because they're in that divine energy that wants us to change us so that the world can change. But you look at tarot and I'm like, it's in the 4 elements. It's all in the elements. It's all at that crossroads, whatever that cross is. It's the heart at the center of the crossroads, and which directions you're going to take. You're going to go all directions. And the heroine journey is nobody is coming in to save you but you. You have to be, in More Than Existing, I write it as, you have to be the one to take yourself off the cross. Stop nailing yourself to crosses. Stop nailing yourself to your pain, to the misery. The pain is real and the pain will always be real. But the misery we place ourselves in becomes the choice to choose to constantly to live a life of suffering or to choose to move beyond and move to the light of love and to find out that you are still here to experience some of the good things because this spirit that's inside has been waiting for you. So my second book is called Beyond the Reflection. And so the truth beyond the reflection. When I fell to the ground from my lowest moments became my most defining, my awakening moment of my phoenix moment of rising into that. And I thought the first one was the big one. And I'm like, every one got bigger. And then the last big one, it was the house almost burning down. And to come from that place and realizing that I was sleeping, could smell it, could hear it. And they're saying, don't look back. Just keep coming with us. Keep coming with us. Just trust us, have faith. Just keep going forward. And in that moment, I realized that this is your pivotal crossroads moment, Corrie. You're at the crossroads. You could have fear and you could fall back and you can lose yourself or you can rise up. You can rise from the ashes. You always have an opportunity to rise again. Climb above the pain, climb above the pain story. Stand at the top and think, I am here to live for all of those who never got to live their full lives. And because we're still here, we still have an opportunity. And that we get to live from that. And we can call ourselves whatever we want. I say we don't need to be labeled. We need to just live. And to be able to live to our true self and our full self, empowered and be who we are without shame, blame, and without feeling like we're betraying ourselves is what's important. And that's what I've noticed. That's the big thing with Chantelle, and my love of Chantelle is that she climbed that, she walked that journey. She's walking that journey, and she's truly, honestly living as her. And I'm honored to see you living this way and living your life to be true and to finally find that sense of peace and happiness within. So thank you. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for being here. Is there anything you would like to add to this before we leave?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I think, yeah, I just circling back about the labels thing of, because like my talk that I'm doing in January is like, what is witchcraft? And so like, yeah, I'm talking about the core beliefs of it and stuff like that. And a lot of it's just kind of going through the like misconceptions and all that kind of jazz. But yeah, you don't need a label. It's just like, for me, when I say that I'm a witch, it's just an easy way to explain, you know, what my belief system is, or like what I do in my practice and things like that. But the label is easy for other people. The label's for other people to understand, whereas, so I don't have to do an hour-long explanation every time that I meet a new person, or you know describing myself or whatever. The label's not for you. Like the label, you know, the label's not for me. The label's for other people, you know. And the label you choose to use or put on yourself is what, it's just whatever is comfort. Like it's just comfort. It's just easy for me.
To identify, right?
Exactly. It's just an easy identifier, and it's but yeah, it's not for you. It's for other people. So don't get stuck, because I have a few people that I'm mentoring right now that are really stuck on the label thing, and they're trying to find their label. You know what I mean? And it's like forget the label, because the label's not for you. Do you. And when you find you, then, you know, because then you people are, well, what do you do? Or, you know, whatever. And then it's like, just label me this. You know what I mean? And it just, because it's like, okay, if you have to have one, here's your if
label. You need it.
Yeah, if you need it, here, use this, right? So yeah, don't get caught in that, because it's not a label for you. You're not labeling yourself. You're making a descriptional label for other people to use, essentially.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
To me, she is my dear friend Chantelle, who I love dearly. And I see the magic in her every day. And as I watch her, as I just see her grow and evolve, and I can't wait to have you be a part of the January event. Mm-hmm. And I know there will be so much more that we're going to see of Chantelle. And if you have not subscribed for the Witch Box, for her monthly box, I suggest going to her website. We will add all of the information below so that you can contact her. All of her information is also in the Corrie School of Magic on the event. And the event is free. For anyone who's wondering, the event is going to be free. It's free for all women to join, to get yourself joined up. It is an all weekend thing, lots of presenters. And Chantelle is on what day are you on? The Friday or Saturday? Friday?
Yeah, Friday evening at 6:30.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna say, I think she's the first day. She's the Friday and the first day that Chantelle will be there, and you get to be live and interactive with her, right? You're live, you're one of the live. Yeah. I'm gonna say some are pre-recorded and some are live, and Chantelle is one of the live ones. So you get to be live and interactive with Chantelle and be able to ask her any question and reach out to her. And she does work online, and she is in Slave Lake, Alberta. For those wondering, for those who are going to message and say, hey, where is she operating? She's in my old hometown. She is in Slave Lake, Alberta. So for in-person, when we're allowed to do in-person again, that's where she will be located out of. So thank you for joining today. And like I said, all of her information will be here so you can reach out to her. So much love. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. So best of luck. And I can't wait to see the book. And we'll also announce that when she does get the book. So
Oh, whenever I get it done. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Corrie.
You're welcome.